All right, we're just going to wait for a few people to arrive. It's not due in another 5 minutes, I think. So just hang loose.
Din rolle fra, Mads. Du har vel ikke noget andet, du kan?
Nej, det kan du ret i. Det var bare fordi jeg havde... Så skulle jeg lige sætte det der webcam, som de gamle, der har lige sat til, så får de rent afdelt andet webcam.
Typisk. Hvad siger du? Det kører. Du vil ikke have et feed ud over her, eller hvad? Du vil have et feed ud over der, eller hvad?
Det er lige arbejde på, ja.
Okay. Alright guys, we're trying to get a feed from Mass's computer to get you to see the room. Also is getting pretty filled up. Nicola,
hvorfor den hopper rundt i... Altså jeg ser det sådan her nede på min skærm.
Det er presenter mode det der.
Du ser det samme eller hvad?
Sådan presenter mode det der.
Jamen jeg ser det her.
Jamen det er fint nok, vi kan godt se.
Ja, okay. Jeg synes lige se om...
Skal jeg lige se på?
Ja,
så tager du over, eller hvad?
Nej, det kan jeg godt bare se.
Så kan jeg lige sætte...
Ja,
eller hvad?
Jeg kan, nej, det kan hvis...
Hvis jeg lige introducerer det der, og lige siger, hvem vi har med heroppe, og hvad spillereglerne er, så tager du over og styrer spørgsmål.
Ja, det er sådan godt. Jeg skal også lige introducere os to. Der er jo nogen, der kan være med før, så... Ja.
Velkommen til mig.
Ja. Nå, vil du gerne?
Nej, sig det må du gerne gøre det.
Jeg skal først lige sige velkommen på mig. Jeg er fyre af du.
Chris and Scott, I'm just going to sign out from my profile here, so we just keep the picture of the screen and you two guys. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Information we have, I would say, 80 people in the room, all keen to learn about format and how to bring that concept into our context.
Sounds great.
So I'll just start in Danish and we'll switch over to English in a bit. Hej og velkommen alle sammen. Det her det er anden session. Søren og jeg, vi står på vegne af uddannelsesudvalg for design og fyre for at prøve at promovere konceptet omkring free open access education i Danmark. Nogle af jer har været med til første session, hvor vi introducerede, hvad det handler om. Det her det er bestemt vores highlight. Det er to af de allerstørste folk, som vi har live her til at svare på spørgsmål. Spillereglerne er de, at Vi håber, I vil stille nogle spørgsmål via Twitter. Det skal være under hashtag fyrefoam, som fremgår nogle af de tweets derovre, og som vi desværre ikke lige kan få op på skærmen, men FYAFOAM, fyrefoam. Så monitorerer vi dem og stiller nogle spørgsmål videre. Any questions? All right. So we're very pleased to have Scott Weingeist of MCRIT fame from New York with us. Maximally aggressive care everywhere, bringing upstairs care downstairs. The man himself. And with him on the left, we have Chris Nixon, the man who never sleeps. He's co-creator of Life in the Fast Lane, of the Rage podcast, of Intensive. He's co-convener of the Social Media and Critical Care Conference, which is the best conference you will ever get to if you get the chance. I will be monitoring the tweets, and Søren will be trying to pull it all together and try to keep a bit of structure to the debates. So hopefully we'll have some good questions from all of you. All right, take it away, Søren.
All right, guys. Very pleased to have you with us today. And just for starters, maybe introduce yourself. Let's start with Scott and tell us how you got involved with the foam movement.
Sure. So I practice as an emergency department intensivist, which is a profession that doesn't actually exist in the United States, no matter how many times we try to claim it does. And as a result, we are kind of hewing out our own practice as we go. And I realized that just talking at grand rounds occasionally was not going to be effective. And so I started a podcast around 6 years ago, and it's been the best thing I've done in my entire academic career. And I'm just continuously amazed by how much satisfaction and joy it brings to interact with a large group of like-minded people.
Thank you, Scott. And Chris, all the way from Australia.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, first of all. Hope you can hear me okay. So yeah, it was probably about 2008 when I first started getting into this. So MCRIT and Life in the Fast Lane, I think, have kind of grown and developed on opposite sides of the world in tandem, really. And I got into it because I was doing toxicology as a trainee back then, and which is a specialty where not many people get exposed to in Australia. And I had really great mentors. I was learning a lot, and I thought it would be great to start building a resource that other people could learn this stuff from. And it looked to me that building web pages that anyone could access would be the way to do that. And I was also working at the same hospital as Mike Cadigan, who I do Life in the Fast Lane with, and so it was inevitable that we teamed up and went from sort of maybe 10 pages a day to now over 40,000 page views a day. So, and over 10 million page views in total for Life in the Fast Lane now. And it's also branched out into a much bigger community, and I've had much wider involvement. So totally transformed how, my involvement in medicine.
All right, thank you. Now, you fortunately can't see the room because we got 80 of our colleagues here who's really keen on getting into foam. But why should Danish anesthesiologists actually get into the foam movement? What can we learn from you guys? And Scott, I think you'll pass that question to you.
Sure. So first of all, I think our friend Joe Lex said it best, which is if you want to hear about how things were a decade ago, then by all means keep reading your textbooks. And if you want to have just things 3 or 4 years out of date, then the journal articles are a great way to go. And if you want to hear current topics, then you go to conferences. But if you want to hear the cutting edge, things that are just breaking right now, sometimes from the authors themselves, then you want to be involved with social media, and foam is the way to do it, because foam, which was coined by Chris and Mike Cadogan, is free, it's open access, and it's medical education. But one part of that that's not in the name is the fact that it is already curated by someone who loves this stuff, and therefore only the best things are out there, and then immediately filtered through the opinions and thoughts of experts in the field. And so you can't get a better resource than that. There's just nothing else out there doing the same thing foam is right now.
Thank you, Scott. And over to you, Chris. Why do you think we should get
Yes.
involved?
Yeah. So I sort of echo Scott's comments there, that in terms of keeping up to date, not just with sort of the information that you need to know, because you can create your own filters so that you kind of much more effortlessly get the information you want directed to you. But it also gives that perspectives of experts in different parts of the world as well. I mean, I think it's a feature of high-performing teams that you can embrace diversity and see conflicting opinions as an opportunity to learn from and make things better. And that's really what foam is for me. But it's also this amazing community. I think it's an unrivaled thing really in medicine for networking, finding an opportunity to collaborate with others and share ideas and learn from one another. And the other thing that I really derive from it is I get an enormous amount of energy from this. It reminds me a lot of really what I like about medicine. I get to sort of help people. I get to work with really great people all around the world. And I guess in some small way makes me feel like, I make the world a little bit of a better place through doing this stuff.
Thank you. I'll echo that one to the feeling of almost spirituality. Chris, how do you see foam interact with our standard medical education in the future?
Yeah, so I think that's a really important question because personally, I think it's a bit of a straw man argument to think that foam is an alternate way of learning or an alternate form of medical education. It really has to be integrated with everything else we do. Because let's face it, we learn medicine at the bedside from patients and from our bedside mentors who give us feedback on what we're doing and help us put things in perspective. So I guess what foam does is it creates all these resources that allows us to prevent needless duplication of resources. It also gives us access to experts that, depending on where we are in the world, we may not have access to. And these resources really come into their own when we think about, for instance, in my unit we have issues with education where we have a lot of people to teach, but they're all working different shifts. They can't always make everything, make the formal education sessions. So we can create things so that people can learn asynchronously, and then ideally when we do get together, instead of having didactic lectures, one person at the front of the room standing and talking, we can concentrate then on more active participatory ways of learning, and that may involve actually critically appraising the foam resources that we've discussed, figuring out whether they apply to our context, and or figuring out why they don't, which is equally important. So that's kind of what I'm really working on trying to do now, where I am at the Alfred in Melbourne.
Can I take a shot at that as well? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Scott. But I've
is the audience still?
Denmark, I think.
You guys able to still hear us? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
all right.
We're back.
Fantastic.
Oh, we're back. I think we're back.
I think we're back.
So yeah, sure. Take it away, Scott.
Sure.
You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was gonna show a picture, but I think the risk of destroying this link is not worth that picture. But I'll say that I think it can integrate, just as Chris has alluded to, and I think we should. I think we are in danger if we just stay in our own little community of not getting the exposure of our ideas to the broader community that hasn't joined foam yet, and we lose some credibility. And for example, I just recently published a paper on delayed sequence intubation, which had been in the foam community for maybe 3 years, being batted around, being vetted, being looked at, and then I published the formal publication. And I think that's a great way to do it, is take all the ideas, really hone them down to a perfect state in the foam world where you get the best feedback, the best real-life interpretation of your ideas, and then publish it. Put it into the standard medical hierarchy. Put it somewhere that it could be peer-reviewed and looked at and accepted into the traditional form.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah,
Mads, do we have any...
Yeah, touching on that, just taking that a bit further, Scott. Early on we talked about some of the initiatives that are taking place with regard to the whole peer review process, with the internet facilitating faster feedback and faster publication and self-publication, if you will. What do you see in the future for the big publishing houses and for the journals? And I alluded to Critical Care Horizons as an example of something that's happening. Could you maybe elaborate on what you see in the future in that field?
Absolutely. I think at this stage of the game, if you put up a new publication, a new piece of research, and there's not the ability of the community to instantly comment on it in a fashion that is moderated only for expletives and not for content, and then that is immediately seen by the authors and they could respond in kind without being moderated, then we are losing out on an enormous real-time peer review option. And only a few journals have even moved slightly towards this. For instance, the BMJ or their spin-offs like the Emergency Medicine Journal of Great Britain. Others like Emergency Medicine Australasia are also looking at fantastic new ways of interacting and having the audience give real-time peer review of publications. But lacking that, I think, A, we're missing out on an enormous amount of information, and B, I really don't trust a journal that doesn't trust its audience enough to provide that kind of feedback.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, that was basically exactly the topic of peer review was the other thing that I was interested in talking about as well, because I think the foam community has started to serve this purpose independent of the journals, where we have seen examples of corrections being made to papers in the New England Journal based on blogs and discussions in our sphere, I suppose. And increasingly, I think it's inevitable that journals are going to see that this is the way to go, because they're going to want to have this engagement with them and maintain their audience. And at the moment, it's happening away from them. So they've just got to, I think, embrace that and realize that the benefits outweigh the potential dangers of somebody saying something a little bit nasty about your paper.
Thank you. Another danger is the involvement of the medical industry. Do you see any dangers on the horizon coming from the medical industries trying to maybe affect what we're doing through foam? Scott, I'll take that to you.
Well, the beauty of the internet, at least until the United States screws it up with net neutrality, is they really can't touch us. They are really just struggling to try to latch on and charge for the things that we're doing for free. But it's going to be the same thing as the recording industry. They've already lost the battle. They just haven't accepted it. And it'll be another 10 years or so before they either innovate, which is doubtful given their previous track record, or they just give up. And I don't have a problem with the traditional medical publishing industry disappearing. We need real journals, obviously. That's going to be there forever. But textbooks, I think, are on their way out. And there are other ways of cannibalizing the knowledge of the people that write for them. They're not going to work anymore.
But if we are throwing out our textbooks, Scott, are we maybe missing out on some of the more boring stuff, the more unsexy stuff? Are we only to focus on advanced airway management and delayed sequence intubation and stuff like that?
Well, it's a great question. We said the same thing about encyclopedias, and now Wikipedia is the only one I go to. And it's not perfect, but it is a collection of every esoteric and boring topic known to man. It's free. It's run by people who just care about the information. I think if we had a similar situation in all the areas of medicine, it would be much better vetted than Wikipedia and a much more potent resource that's actually updated in real time.
All right. All right. Any comments on that, Chris?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing a evolution in the content. I suppose it's probably inevitable that these so-called sexy topics have dominated the things that people have wanted to talk about. But it's ultimately we're all about looking after patients, aren't we, and getting the best patient outcomes. And unfortunately for us, a lot of that does involve a lot of boring work, and that's often what makes a difference. And I guess it's a challenge for us as educators and knowledge translators to make or find ways of making that engaging, and that's what I hope to see happen over the next few years.
All right, it's great. I think we have a question from
we have maybe
Twitter.
a couple of things from Twitter. Some people are concerned about how do you get on firm and not get lost and use too much time inefficiently. I know you've been talking about this a lot previously as well. You guys seem to not need sleep, but for the rest of us, any advice?
This is all Chris.
No, I was going to hand that to Scott. I think he's probably more efficient than I am. Look, I think it's all about. It's same with everything we do. It's very easy to get overrun. I guess it's figuring out what you want to get out of this, and it's, for instance, I think it's very simple. If you just want to find out what papers have come out in the past week in critical care, all you need to do is subscribe to criticalcarereviews.com, and that will fulfill that need. So it's really about just figuring out what you want to get out of this, and then you can upscale your degree of involvement. Some people like to have continuous discussions on Twitter 24 hours a day. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm not one of those people. What do you want to say about that, Scott?
I haven't found a solution for myself. I'm fairly useless to answer this question because I can't accept that there's something out there that may be good that I'm not reading, and so it's a path to insanity, as I call it. But Chris has elaborated, I think, in the various Life in the Fast Lane posts, some great ways to do it. You could pick a few resources that you trust and just go for it. If the only thing you did in emergency medicine and critical care was read Critical Care Reviews and Life in the Fast Lane, and maybe listen to a podcast or two, I think you'd be very, very much of the way there without any additional stuff, and then you could add on as time allows.
All right. Thanks for that. I just going back to the peer review thing and the publishing. In the production of foam, that obviously is very time consuming, and if you want to make a good product, that is it demands a lot of effort on you. What kind of reward structure do you see in the future for this kind of work?
Oh yeah. Well, there's more and more institutions accepting this as academic work product, but I'm very much of the mind that if you are doing this for some form of a reward structure other than what is provided just intrinsically to foam, you're in it for the wrong reason. You will be disappointed, and the foam that will be produced is going to start feeling oily. And I've seen intimations of this, people who are like, I think I should start a blog because it's probably a quicker pathway to me getting a higher professorship. And how do I do that? And now they're starting just at the beginning of putting at these academic conferences how to use foam to advance your career. And it makes me want to shoot myself in the head. I'm very concerned about people who are not doing this for love, but doing it for other motives and what they're going to do to the community. And I haven't seen anyone yet actually producing anything from that perspective, but I'm very concerned that there may be a wave of that coming in the future.
All right, I think we should take some questions from the audience if anyone likes to take a shot at our experts. Yes, please, let's just have the mic down there, Mads.
You said it yourself. The problem could be that you trust some not trustworthy sources. I mean, how do you find out which page, which source you can trust? That would be my concern.
It's such a great question. It's what we're wrestling with right now. Some of the foam resources like Life in the Fast Lane and MCRIT have, at this stage, thankfully, so many listeners or readers that we get vetted immediately. We get immediate any of our screw-ups get found and told to us by 3 separate sources within 5 minutes of publication, and that's beautiful. The concern is a brand new blog, a brand new podcast doesn't have that built-in audience of peer review, and we are concerned about it. One way you could guard against that is instead of finding things de novo off a Google search, see if you get them from an already vetted source. If Life in the Fast Lane, for instance, links to a blog, it means Chris is reading it and probably will keep on reading it. And if we see it there, we start reading it. And now you could trust that there's at least an audience of relatively smart people who are vetting this stuff. If you just find something by a search, then you don't know. And that's kind of dangerous. Where the people who are very academically minded amongst our little world are looking into ways to fix this. I don't have a great solution yet. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the same as when we're walking in the corridor of the hospital and we talk to one of our colleagues. I think whenever I get offered advice, I think about who it's coming from, what their credentials are. Have they given me good advice before? What do other people think about their advice, other trusted people? And then if they are going to tell me something, are they referencing it? Is there other evidence to back it up? And then, as Scott's already alluded to, that there is that element of peer review and challenge. And that's the other thing I look at with a website, is how they respond to criticism or challenges. I'm much more reassured by a website that says that's wrong and admits it and then changes or takes on board that criticism and discusses it than one that doesn't have that and creates the illusion that it's always correct. Because let's face it, if we're based on science, we're always going to be wrong eventually.
Right, I think just time for one last question. Anybody in the audience? How are you for time, guys?
Oh, I'm good. I've still got
here until you're done with me.
Oh, brilliant. Well, early on we discussed the dangers of sort of young doctors cherry-picking from sort of the advanced advice given on some of the foam resources. How do you guard against that in sort of in the setting of a day-to-day work in a unit and in an organization?
It's what I have been wrestling with. I have program directors of emergency medicine and critical care programs come up to me and say, my resident did something really stupid and said he heard it on your podcast. And usually they had just extrapolated something or gotten it wrong. And from the beginning, my podcast has stated, this is my clinical practice. I don't recommend you do it without going back, reading the same things I read, seeing if it actually integrates into your practice. Now, no matter how many times I say that, there's going to be residents, it's usually at the training level, who will just do things because they heard it on a podcast. And that's not a good practice, and it's not a good excuse. If you hear something on a podcast, that is a spur to go and see if you agree with it and it fits into your world. It's not a spur to do it the next day and then just write me an email saying, oh, I tried this and it didn't work out. Because it might not have worked out because it's not your practice. It's not. You don't have, the same nursing ratio. You don't have the same equipment. So we just put it out there on MCRIT as a spur, and then you should do the vetting yourself.
Good advice.
I think we're about to wrap up, guys. If you got any last comments that you will put out to us, otherwise we'll say thank you for using your precious time. I know, and defining or at least coming to terms with the time zones issue. I'm really glad you did. Any last comments, guys?
From my point of view, I just like to say thanks for having me, and it will be. It's one of the really exciting things of being involved in this is seeing how it's spreading throughout the world, and I think diverse opinions, different backgrounds. It's amazing how parochial medicine is, how we can be in our own little world, in our own little hospital, and think that the way we do things is the way. And so I think getting more people around the world talking about how they do medicine, it can only be a good thing. So hope to see some more great people from Scandinavia, Denmark in particular, getting involved in foam. Bring it on.
You bet. Thank you
Absolutely.
guys for such brilliant work. Scott, any last thoughts?
Yeah, this was a great pleasure. I'm so glad you folks had me. If you do nothing else from listening to us talk, come join Twitter. I think it will change the way you interact with the medical community. We had some real old guard folk come on. We have John Myberg on Twitter. If he could do it, you absolutely could come on. And I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, there you go. So please, come join us and come join the conversation.
Okay, guys, thank you.
All right,
And,
that's a wrap. Thank you very much.
okay.